Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome to today's biology class. Today is the third class on chapter 4, Bioenergetics. In the second class, we learned about the two phases of photosynthesis reaction. The first phase was light dependent phase and the second phase was light independent phase. And photolysis and photophosphorylation are two important steps during the light dependent phase. Photolysis is the breakdown of water molecule and photophosphorylation is production of ATP using the sunlight. And why is ATP and NADP is called assimilatory energy? Because the energy of ATP and NADPH is used to assimilate carbon dioxide to produce glucose. And we have also understood about the C3 cycle that takes place during the light independent phase for most of the plants. And in the third class today, inshallah, we will learn about the C4 cycle that takes place during the light independent phase in some plants like maize, sugarcane, etc. And some plants like aloe vera, cactus, they follow Gam cycle or Crassulacean acid metabolism cycle to produce glucose. Inshallah, we will learn about these two processes. We will understand about the differences between C3 cycle and C4 cycle, the external and internal factors that affects photosynthesis, and the importance of photosynthesis reaction. So C4 cycle is named after the discoverer scientists Hatch and Slack. That is why the another name of C4 cycle is Hatch and Slack cycle. And this cycle or pathway is discovered in 1966. So why is such cycle called C4 cycle? Because the first stable product produced during this chemical reaction cycle, the first product is 4-carbon oxaloacetic acid. In the previous Calvin cycle, we understood that the first stable product was 3-carbon phosphoglyceric acid. That is why the another name of Calvin cycle was C3 cycle. So similarly, the Hatch-Slack cycle is called C4 cycle because the first stable product contains 4-carbon. And which plants follow the C4 cycle? Some plants of the grass family like maize, sugarcane, mutha grass, amaranthus, they follow this cycle, this cyclical order of reactions during the light independent phase to produce glucose. So now we will understand how this C4 cycle works. The plants performing C4 cycle are called C4 plants, and inside their leaves they have a special type of leaf anatomy that is different from the anatomy of leaves of C3 plants. This leaf anatomy of C4 plants is called Kranz anatomy. Kranz is a German word that means like a circular ring of flower. So we are talking about that the C4 plants inside their leaves has a special type of tissue arrangement. So what is this special type of arrangement? We know there are vascular bundle inside leaves, and in case of C4 plant leaves, the vascular bundle is surrounded by a circular layer of bundle sheath cells, and the circular layer of bundle sheath cells is again surrounded by a circular layer of mesophyll cells. So what happens? The carbon dioxide that enters into the leaf through the stomata in the lower epidermis, that at first reaches to the mesophyll cell, and then it reaches to the bundle sheath cell. In the mesophyll cell, there is a precursor molecule called phosphoenol pyruvic acid. That is a 3-carbon compound. There are numerous number of molecules in the mesophyll cell that captures carbon dioxide, that assimilates carbon dioxide, and in this process PEP carboxylase enzyme helps. What is the first stable product in this cycle is oxaloacetic acid, which is a 4-carbon compound. That is the reason behind naming such C4 cycle. So the first stable product is oxaloacetic acid, and this oxaloacetic acid turns into malic acid, and then it travels to the bundle sheath cells, and then this malic acid converts enzymatically to produce pyruvic acid, 3-carbon compound. So a single carbon is lost in form of carbon dioxide, so this carbon dioxide is released in the bundle sheath cell cytoplasm, and this pyruvic acid then again returns to the mesophyll cell and then regenerates into phosphoenolpyruvic acid. So what happened here, we see the carbon dioxide is first captured in the mesophyll cell and then travels to the bundle seed cell and then released to the bundle seed cell, and this carbon dioxide enters into a C3 cycle or Calvin cycle to produce glucose. Here we see the C4 cycle contains C3 cycle as a part of it. That means the Hatch-Slack cycle contains Calvin cycle as a part of it. So this complex process takes place in the leaves of maize, sugarcane, mutha grass, etc. Now we will talk about Gam cycle. The full form of Gam cycle is Crassulacean acid metabolism. So this special type of carbon reduction process is an adaptation mechanism of plants which are living in dry environment. So why is this cycle named such? Because this pathway of carbon reduction is first discovered in plants of Crassulaceae family. That's why this chemical cycle is called Crassulacean acid metabolism. And this Gam cycle is not only exclusively found in the plants of Crassulaceae family, but also found in some other plants like pineapple, cactus, aloe vera, etc. So cacti is the plural form of cactus. Now we will understand about the differences between C3 and C4 cycle. The first topic of difference is which chemical is the primary receiver of carbon dioxide. In C3 cycle, the carbon dioxide is received by ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate, in short RUBP, and in C4 cycle, the carbon dioxide is received by phosphoenolpyruvic acid, in short PEP. The fixing enzyme of carbon dioxide in C3 cycle is Rubisco enzyme. In C4 cycle, the enzyme is called PEP carboxylase. The first stable product produced in the C3 cycle is 3-phosphoglyceric acid, that is a 3-carbon compound, and the first stable product in C4 cycle is called oxaloacetic acid, which is a 4-carbon compound. In which cells does C3 cycle take place? The C3 cycle take place in the chloroplast of mesophyll cells, but C4 cycle takes place in both mesophyll cell and bundle seed cells. That means both mesophyll and bundle seed cells are engaged to proceed the C4 cycle. The ideal temperature to operate the C3 cycle lies between 10 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius, while the ideal temperature of C4 cycle lies between 30 degrees Celsius to 45 degrees Celsius. The minimum concentration to operate the C3 cycle is minimum 50 ppm, parts per million, while the C4 cycle can run even at very much low concentration. The C4 cycle can run at minimum 0.1 ppm concentration. And C3 cycle is not effective to operate in intense light. C3 cycle cannot operate at intense light or extreme temperature, while the C4 cycle can operate very much well, efficiently in intense light or at intense temperature. And phenomenon called photorespiration can take place in the C3 cycle when there is intense light or intense temperature. But in case of C4 cycle, the photorespiration doesn't take place. So what is photorespiration? Photorespiration is the opposite event of photosynthesis. That means the C3 cycle cannot tolerate intense light and intense temperature. At such situation, the C3 cycle cannot work, the photosynthesis cannot work. Instead of photosynthesis, in presence of light, the plants performs cellular respiration. So this phenomenon is called photorespiration, which is very much common in C3 cycle, but in case of C4 cycle, the photorespiration does not take place because they can manage the situation well to proceed the C4 cycle. So From the discussion of the differences between these two cycles, we can understand that C4 cycle is very much efficient than C3 cycle in terms of utilizing the carbon dioxide, in terms of operating at higher temperature, etc. Now we will understand about the role of chlorophyll in photosynthesis. We know chlorophyll is the main photosynthetic pigment that performs photosynthesis, that captures the sunlight energy, but other pigments like carotene, xanthophyll, they can also absorb some amount of sunlight to help in photosynthesis process. So if there is more chloroplast, then they will contain more number of chlorophyll, and that will result in higher amount of photosynthesis. But only the increasing of chloroplast doesn't increase the photosynthesis rate. The photosynthesis rate depends on the number of chloroplast or chlorophyll, but it also depends on the amount of enzymes. So if there is shortage of enzymes, then the rate of photosynthesis will be limited. Now we will understand about the role of light during photosynthesis process. The incoming sunlight that falls on the plant leaves, a small fraction, only a small fraction can be utilized to perform photosynthesis, and the rest of the sunlight is reflected or refracted, and that is wasted. We know that a different kind of light comes from the sun, but the photosynthetic pigments can utilize only the visible light spectrum that contains the 7 colors. We know the visible white light contains the 7 colors: VIBGYOR, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. So the violet color starts from the 390 nanometer wavelength, and the red color ends at 760 nanometer wavelength. We know that very well from the discussion of electromagnetic waves in physics. So the photosynthetic pigments can utilize only the violet blue portion and the orange red portion of the visible light spectrum. So the violet blue portion lies between 400 to 480 nanometer wavelength, and the orange red portion lies between 680 to 700 nanometer wavelength. So these wavelengths carry the maximum amount of energy, and that can be efficiently utilized by the photosynthetic pigments. And the lights of other colors like green or yellow, they cannot be utilized by the photosynthetic pigments very much. Now we will discuss about the external factors that affect the photosynthesis and how they affect the photosynthesis process. We have discussed about the role of light during photosynthesis. What is the effect of carbon dioxide? We know that the normal concentration of carbon dioxide in atmosphere is 0.03%. So if the concentration of carbon dioxide increase, then the rate of photosynthesis will also increase. But this increase of photosynthesis rate will increase up to 1% concentration. If the carbon dioxide concentration is more than 1%, so increasing the amount of carbon dioxide more than 1% concentration will not result in increase of photosynthesis rate. What is the effect of temperature? 22 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius is the optimum temperature for photosynthesis process. We know that water is essential for survival of any kind of cell, any kind of living being. So if there is shortage of water, then the enzymes in cytoplasm or the enzymes engaged in photosynthesis process cannot work properly, so the photosynthesis process will be inhibited. We know oxygen is a byproduct. Oxygen is a byproduct of photosynthesis reaction. So if the amount of oxygen in atmosphere increases, then the photosynthesis rate will be decreased. And we know different minerals, different macronutrients and micronutrients have crucial role to perform photosynthesis, especially nitrogen and magnesium. Nitrogen is an important part to form the chlorophyll molecules, and magnesium is an important mineral that increases the photolysis rate. So deficiency of these macro and micronutrients will result in inhibition of photosynthesis process. There are some chemical substances which are toxic for plants, such as chlorophyll, hydrogen sulfide, and methane. Presence of these gases or chemical substances will result in inhibition of photosynthesis. Now we will discuss about the internal factors affecting photosynthesis. We discussed about the role of chlorophyll. We know the mid-aged cells contains the highest number of chlorophyll molecules. That is why the rate of photosynthesis is highest in the mid-aged cells. The young cells and old cells have less amount of chlorophyll, so they have lower photosynthesis rate. What is the effect of amount of carbohydrate? Carbohydrate is a product of photosynthesis. So if there is high amount of accumulation of carbohydrate in the cell, this will result in decreased amount of photosynthesis. Potassium is an important macronutrient, so it has a great importance to perform photosynthesis, and different enzymes are necessary to perform the photosynthesis process. Now we will discuss about the importance of photosynthesis. I hope you know about the importance of photosynthesis very well, because you are discussing and understanding about importance of this process from the earlier classes like class 5, 6, 7, 8. So I think I don't need to discuss it in elaborate form. Photosynthesis is called the most important biochemical reaction on Earth, and it forms a bridge between the sunlight and living being. That means this process converts the sunlight energy into chemical energy, and this chemical energy is stored inside the plant body parts that supports the survival of all living beings. The foods for animal consumption comes directly or indirectly from plants. Herbivorous animals get their foods directly from plants, while the carnivorous animals get their food indirectly from the plants. So if there was no photosynthesis, the plants would not be able to perform photosynthesis and would not be able to produce food. Photosynthesis maintains the balanced ratio between the concentrations of oxygen and carbon dioxide. We know the concentration of oxygen in atmosphere is about 21% or 22%, and the concentration of carbon dioxide is about 300 ppm. So photosynthesis increases the amount of oxygen and decreases the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But what is happening now after the post-industrial period, post-industrial evolution? Burning of fossil fuel is increasing the amount of carbon dioxide, and burning of trees or cutting down trees is decreasing the amount of oxygen. So photosynthesis is the main reaction, is the only reaction that is keeping the balanced ratio between concentrations of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And plants are the main source of food, fabric, and industrial raw materials for us, and the progression of human civilization depends on plants very well, and also the existence of human civilization depends on these plant products. So let's revise what we have learned in today's class. We have learned about the C4 cycle to produce glucose that is followed in some plants like maize or sugarcane. We have also understood about the Gam cycle to produce glucose that is followed in aloe vera and cactus or pineapple plants. We have also understood about the differences between C3 cycle and C4 cycle, and we have also discussed about the external and internal factors affecting photosynthesis and the importance of photosynthesis reaction. So at the end of today's class, you have a homework. Explain the roles of external factors affecting the photosynthesis process. Today's class ends here. সবাই ভালো থেকো ইনশাআল্লাহ। সুবহানাকা আল্লাহুম্মা ওয়া বিহামদিকা আশহাদু আল্লা ইলাহা ইল্লা আনতা আস্তাগফিরুকা ওয়া আতুবু ইলাইক। Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.